Well, Reverend Richard Burdick, I'm very happy to be here with you today.
Happy to have you here.
Thank you very much. You have been the leader of the Unity Church, the spiritual leader of the Unity Church. I've come many times to your church. In the past couple of years, I have enjoyed your sermons, your open mind, your open heart, and you have invited us as Baha'is to also come and speak for your congregation and have a class for your congregation, and I enjoyed that as well.
As did we.
And I took this opportunity to come here and converse with you again. And the first thing that I'd like you to share with us is basically in a short few minutes, tell us about yourself and your ministry and Unity North. Your mission, your vision, all of those.
Well, in a few short minutes, that's going to be a challenge.
Yes.
But I've been the spiritual leader here at Unity North for about 3.5 years. I began my journey 7 years ago as a youth minister, working with the children and the teens. Got into music because I'm a musician as well, and divine appointment, as we call it in Unity. I just moved up the ladder in this particular church experience. And a little bit by default, a bit of a reluctant leader was asked to step into the role of the spiritual leader. I'm not ordained yet as a Unity minister. I'm in the field licensing program.
Yes.
And so I'm a student as well as a teacher, which is, I think, the best place to be.
We're all students all the time.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
And so this church has afforded me wonderful opportunities. It's a wonderful community of people from different paths, different denominations, all seeking truth, practical spirituality, and how they find the God of their understanding within them. And so it's a very broad paintbrush that we paint with here, looking for truth where it can be found, and not necessarily pushing a particular doctrine or dogma, but we're about holding hands, connecting in our hearts, and joining spirits to discover a greater awareness of God every day.
Perhaps this is one of the things that attracted me first time that I came to a church, where you had this sign, many paths, one God, or one God, many paths.
Yes.
And then your approach and your sermons also confirmed that to me, that you really believe that. And so, which is very much in line with Baha'i way of thinking, that Baha'u'llah's main teaching is that the essence of the truth is really one. The approaches are different, and we have to be able to reconcile. We have to be able to come together, and through conversation, through heart-to-heart conversation, we can understand the essence of that truth that you're talking about.
I think the conversation is the most important thing.
Yeah.
There must be a willingness to be that humble and vulnerable, to realize that your perspective might be different than mine, but there is an element of truth in both perspectives. And we often say on Sundays that we're all going up the mountain together. You may be on one side of the mountain, I may be on the other, but we're all going to the same place, and we will reach there, and that's the place of oneness.
The place of oneness, yes. I always say that Voltaire, 18th century, Age of Enlightenment, had the vision of acceptance and tolerance, which is wonderful. But always say that we have come one step further. And beyond tolerance, it is when we converse and understand, and as you said, the two sides of the mountain, and then understand the oneness of that mountain from whichever side it is.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore we come together, we love one another, and we associate more comfortably with one another.
I think the mountain, from the unity perspective, would be the phrase, there is no you and me.
Mm-hmm.
There is no us and them.
Yes.
That the mountain itself is that place of oneness, the consciousness that recognizes that I don't need to tolerate you because you are me.
Right.
We are of the same essence and the same substance. That unity would say is the expression of God.
Yes.
But there's no need for tolerance except for myself.
Right.
Because we are not separate from each other. We're
Not
intrinsically linked to each other in a way that the human mind wants to separate,
Right.
but it is impossible.
Yeah. Okay, with that wonderful introduction, I have a few, basically not so much questions, but ideas, thoughts, that in terms of this beginning of more reconciliation, or more understanding between unity and Baha'is and unity, I want to converse with you. And so with every thought or every question, I would just give you a phrase or a sentence as to how Baha'is think, and then want you to complement or add or subtract whatever you think from your unity perspective.
I think we'll probably have some pretty good parallels.
Yes, yes, I'm sure of that. And so in that sense, it enhances our understanding and the understanding of both Baha'is and unity people, whoever likes to watch this segment.
I acknowledge the bridge builder that you are, and I join you there.
Thank you so much, and same thing with you. So the first thought that I have here is the question of God itself. From the Baha'i perspective, God, the vision of God that we see all across the globe, Baha'u'llah envisions it as the unknowable essence. We cannot understand the essence of God. We can understand that through His manifestations, and that manifestation is all the virtues. So walking in the path of perfection is walking in the path of God and becoming ultimately God-like. So that's basically the Baha'i vision. So what are your thoughts?
Well, the first thought I had is you addressed the energy and source that we know by the name God as itself, as opposed to himself or herself.
Right.
And I appreciate that because it takes the infinite out of the realm of the personality. Many of our traditions in the world have created what unity believes is God in man's image, giving him or her characteristics. And unity tends to take that personality out of the equation and make it the source and the energy of life itself. And it is the only source and the only power through the unity lens. There is no duality that exists in the unity teachings. There's no devil. There is only the one infinite. And if that is the case, it might be a little bit different from the Baha'i in that you are attaining that place of God-like qualities. Unity would say that we were born with that essence within us, and that the fall from grace, if you want to call it that, was humanity forgetting.
Yes.
And forgetting that we are created in the image already, and after the likeness of that perfection. We are created as creative beings with the ability to manifest heaven on earth. Now, we fall asleep, and we live in this dream time, and we begin to think that this physical world that we live in is what is real, and we lose track of the infinite and the spiritual. And so our job as spiritual students is to wake up, and I believe that's a wonderful parallel to Baha'is, to remember the divine essence of God and not allow the human condition to pull us away, not allow behaviors to pull us away from what we know to be true on the inside. So I think it's similar with just different language.
Yes. You know, along the line of what you were saying, I remember Baha'u'llah's, in one of his writings, in a small book that I may have given you, The Hidden Words.
Yes.
He says, noble have I created thee. God has created us noble. And then he says, thou hast abased thyself. Exactly what you're saying.
Exactly.
We have brought ourselves down, but we are created noble. And basically he suggests to humanity, rise up to who you are, because you're made in the image of God.
We use the image of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane when he's imploring for his apostles to stay awake.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's what the essence of God is doing, as this great energy is, wake up humanity. You have forgotten who you are.
Who you are.
You have forgotten what is true. You have forgotten me.
Yes.
And our job is just to really return to that home, which is nothing more than a shift in consciousness.
Yes.
We are noble. We're not born stained. We're not born broken. But the brokenness that we experience is an indication that we have forgotten something that is organically and naturally true about who we are.
Right. So in effect, I think we are also in sync in terms of the use of the word Satan and devil and all of that is not really used in the Baha'i literature. We try to get away from it.
Yeah, unity doesn't use that word much either. The closest we would come to having a devil would be the human ego.
Yes.
The human ego that wants to make God in my image.
Right, right. I mean, that is exactly right. I've seen a lot of Baha'i writings, particularly Abdul Baha, the eldest son of Baha'u'llah, who explained Baha'u'llah's writings, that he, rather than using the word devil and evil and all of that, he uses the word darkness, light and darkness. And the distinction is that he says that darkness really does not exist. Darkness is the absence of light.
Correct.
And then he says that when there's darkness, don't curse the darkness. Shed some light, you know.
We say turn the light on.
Turn
And
the
where do
light
you
on.
turn that light on? This is only one flip of a switch.
Yeah.
Within, in the thought, the feeling that you're having is one switch. Suddenly there is light.
Right.
And the darkness that appeared to be so real was nothing.
Disappears.
Other than the power I gave to it.
Yes, yes. We give it power.
Yeah. Well, we say it is the reality. It is the ultimate reality, which basically the darkness is a belief within my sphere of being, an energy field, that I can be separate from God.
A negative
which
energy.
is not true.
It's
And
not
negative is not necessarily bad or good.
Right.
It's just a part of the experience of waking up, of growing up,
Yes.
and becoming and returning home.
Returning home. That's a beautiful way to say it. So much for that. So the other thought that I have here to share with you is the question of heaven and hell. Baha'i perspective is that, of course, all of those things that we read in all the scriptures, the parables and stories, and for the man of 2,000–3,000 years ago to have an image of, again, light and darkness, of good and bad. So Baha'u'llah's imagery on the question of heaven and hell is that heaven is being close to God, or being close to that idea of perfection and light. And hell is simply being away from it. What is your vision of heaven and hell?
Well, I'll give you mine, which is pretty much the unity vision. Heaven and hell are states of consciousness. They are states of being.
Yes.
They're not places of reward or punishment in some far-off distant place or far-off distant time.
Right.
They are conditions of oneness or separation right now. And so what unity says that we're only one thought, one feeling, one action, or one idea away from being in either place. Is what I'm thinking currently a place of oneness and love and peace and harmony, or is it one of duality and separation, which would be hell? And so, again, it's just a state of being that I happen to be in, and I have the control, the ultimate control of whether I'm in heaven or hell.
Whether I want to be in heaven or hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we may say, I don't want to be here, yet the tapes that we're playing in our mind are
Yeah.
putting us in the very place we don't want. Coming from the thoughts of lack, thoughts of separation, that which says that you and I can be separate, or that my people can be separate from your people. That's a state of hell.
Yes.
Or that I can be separate from the infinite goodness of God.
So anything which is divisive and hateful is a state of hell.
Yes.
Exactly.
And our actions will display where
Yeah.
we're living. And then you're going to ask some questions about morality. The consequences of your thoughts is the hell you're going to be in.
Right.
And so that's the morality we're going to teaching. If you don't like the life that you're living, if the experience you're having of humanity is not fulfilling and uplifting and uniting, and you're in a place of hell, you get to be the changer of that reality. There isn't a God or an entity that's going to pull you out of it or save you. It's up to you to be saved, because God only knows heaven. God knows
Right.
nothing of the place of separation.
And we are part of Him. This is the idea of man made in the image of God.
Correct.
Right.
We are part of it, because it's all that is.
Yes, yes, exactly. So we are in sync in that respect too.
I love that. That's one of the things I appreciate so much. We can dialogue and find commonality.
Commonality. There's so much commonality, particularly between us, you know, in this respect.
But what's wonderful is to spend time with other spiritual leaders whose
Yes.
doctrine and dogma does differ,
Yes.
but still build a bridge of understanding.
Right. And you know, we had this conversation, I think, with you some time ago, that wherever we see those differences, you and I see it as the two sides of the same mountain. Wherever there's then negativity comes to it, it is our job to heal it, even with those leaders who have those negative thoughts, justifiably so. But we want to see where that hurt is coming from, and try to heal that hurt in effect for whoever we come across.
It says in Scripture that we are called to be repairers of the breach,
Yes.
and to not behold walls when they show up.
Right.
We can see a wall, that's from our human perspective. But unity says, let's find possibility here. And many times if you stay in the fire of the possibility of something greater emerging, you will find that there really was no wall after all,
Exactly.
and that language was really the only barrier.
Yes.
That organic to every world religion is an essence.
Right.
That if you stay long enough in the dialogue, you will find.
You'll find it, and it'll be healing. It'll be it's growth inducing, in effect, for both sides.
And what unity kind of would say, which I don't know how you feel about this, is that there's never a need for healing. In the mind of God, in the spirit of truth, our job as students is to only behold the wholeness, to not give our attention to any brokenness in our differences, to not give our attention to any difference of perspective, which is of the human world. Our job is to drop down into the place of spiritual truth where there is wholeness. Nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be healed, except maybe my own attention and my own focus, which needs to drop to a spiritual level beyond the human level.
Mm-hmm. Understand? You know, and those of us who reach that level, you know, I can think of Gandhi or Mother Teresa, then because of the fact that they have healed themselves, they can help heal the world.
Well, Jesus, who is the main guy in unity, says that we shall be known by our fruits.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people on the planet that are speaking about things.
Right.
But I do believe it is our actions that demonstrate much more loudly than the words that we speak.
Definitely.
So we'll be known by our actions, our deeds, whether the love that we espouse is true or not.
Exactly. Next point I have here is just speaking a little bit on the question of what we call manifestations of God, and the current vocabulary among most people is what they call prophets of God.
Mm-hmm.
From Krishna to Buddha and Zoroaster, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, the Bab and Baha'u'llah in the Baha'i faith. We call them manifestations of God. So let me give the Baha'i perspective. Baha'i perspective is that none of them are God, but they are all manifestations of God, which means they are perfect mirrors reflecting that thing that we call God, but we cannot see it. We can see it in these perfect human beings who have come to this earth in order to guide us to that ultimate truth. And then, again, from the Baha'i perspective, there is no division or difference among any one of these. They all speak the same essential truth of compassion and kindness and love and sanctity and purity and all that. And so in that sense, what is your perception of prophets of God, including Jesus and the rest of these guys?
We're often asked in unity, do we believe that Jesus was the Son of God? And our answer is always, yes, Jesus is, but so are you. So yes, beholding the divinity, the truth, the spirit that is perhaps a little bit more awake than I am, or
yes,
that we
yes.
are, is a reflection, as you beautifully put it, of the infinite. It certainly is not all that the infinite is. That person is not all that God is,
yes.
but is a wonderful portal through which we can get a glimpse of what is true, what is just, what is beautiful, and what is life itself.
Right.
And our job is to, as we follow Jesus as our way shower, not to worship him, but to follow him. And as we read the scriptures
yes.
in unity, he doesn't say worship me, he says follow me. And
follow
I believe Baha'u'llah would do the same thing. Follow the example
right.
to the experience of heaven,
right.
to the experience of oneness, to the experience that the presence of God that I am awake to is also in you.
So, as an addition to what we are talking about, Baha'u'llah gives the example of the sun and the mirror, and the manifestation of prophet is the reflection of that sun in the mirror, And he keeps saying that, asking humanity not to confuse the two. Because he says that Jesus cannot become God in that sense, and Baha'u'llah cannot become God in that sense. They are reflections of God in that mirror, so that they can project it again to humanity, so that we can all become God-like. Something in that respect.
No, that's a couple analogies come to mind as you speak. Unity's perspective would be almost like taking the ocean. The ocean is all that God is, the infinite. And each one of us, each prophet, each sage, each teacher, each human being is like a wave within the ocean. And all the qualities of the ocean exist within that wave. But that wave is such a small component of the whole. But the wave has all the potentiality within it. And the image that was coming to mind, if I were to take a colander with holes in it, that you fix a salad in, and you were to take a light, and that the light is the source, the light is God, and you put that the colander up in front of that, you would see on the wall before you many different points of light. This is the human consciousness, the colander, and we've limited what God is, and we decide, well, that light is separate from that light.
But it's the same light.
It is the same light. When you follow it back to a place of source, which is what unity is all about, return to cause. Turn our attention away from the effects and the dialogues and the debates about who is divine and who is not divine, which teacher is more divine or more awake. That's in the world of effect. They are the portal through which we follow the light, remove the colander that has separated the human mind, and then we're in a place of just oneness.
Yes, exactly.
I hope that was a clear visual. It's hard to do without the actual pieces.
Yes. Well, a mirror, or what you're saying,
it's pretty much the same thing.
Pretty much the same thing, yes. Next thing I have here is talking a little bit on the question of religion itself. What is religion, and what is the purpose of it? Again, from the Baha'i perspective, Baha'u'llah explained the religion, whatever religion, should be, the definition that he gives to it, should be a cause of love and unity. Unity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he says that without it, if it doesn't create love and unity, you're better off without it. Don't go to that church or synagogue or mosque if what you hear is divisive and hateful. Because the purpose of God, the purpose of religion, is that harmony and unity and love. What is your thought or definition on the question of religion itself? Well,
I think if you go to the original etymology of the word religion, you discover in its base form to bring back together, to re-legion, to connect. And so I think that any example that we might find where that is not happening, where people are not being brought back together, where humanity is not being back to a place of unity, it is, I'm not going to call it a false teaching, but I believe we have distorted the original purpose of religion. And I do believe that no matter the prophet, no matter the avenue of the Holy Scripture, that you can find within it, its main purpose as a religion is to bring people back to the place of connectedness.
Yes.
And so I believe we're either, in my humble opinion, fulfilling the original intent of our spiritual path, or we have forgotten it. And again, this is not only creating God in our image, it is creating religion in my image. And I do believe that, I don't want to get too political here, but that politics has gotten in bed with religion. And
say some more in that respect.
Well, rulers, and emperors,
yes.
And people who have agendas and who maybe would like to sway people to a certain way of thinking have gotten into partnership with religion. And infiltrated, if you will, the leadership of religion to sway people to a certain way of thinking, a certain way of being. That is very much a political system. And I think that's why some religions have grown. At the edge of a knife, if you ask me if I am the same religion as you, I will tell you yes. I believe that's a political move as opposed to the truth of whatever religion it might be in its original state.
Interesting that you bring this up, because it wasn't really part of what I thought this conversation would be, but now that you brought it to this point, I'd like us to chat about it a little bit, because again, one of the teachings of Baha'u'llah is that you need to stay away from this political confrontation and debate, particularly in a holy place we call Unity Church or a Baha'i Center. He says, don't even bring up the name of those politicians. Don't start the debate, because all of that is divisive. So one of his teachings is that the Baha'i cannot become partisan, and should never engage in partisan politics, because that by itself is divisive and destructive. So what are your thoughts?
Well, as a spiritual leader, I have certain ideals.
Yeah.
I have certain ideals in this world of effects, which includes politics. We live in a human world where we have to have systems of government, systems of just getting along with each other and being together.
Yes.
But I've always, and I believe Unity would say, and I've worked with ministries that said this church stands for peace. That's it. So that we don't take a stand, especially from a platform or a pulpit, that would only be coming from the individual's particular standpoint. Unity put out a doctrine many years ago after the 9/11 event, where there was great coming together on the planet, but there was also lines being drawn in the sand. And there were many people within our congregation that wanted the leaders in the church to be a part of the line drawing. And the only line that we drew, that I drew as a leader in that community, was the line for peace. If you stand for peace, we're on the same side. If you stand for divisiveness and hatred, even in the midst of our pain,
Yeah.
then we are separate from each other.
Exactly.
And so we will hold the container for the possibility of peace, no matter how difficult the darkness or the pain might be. But we will not claim to be Republican, Democrat,
Yes.
liberal, conservative. That's no place in church. And I believe those are creations of the human mind
Yes.
that have pulled us away from the original intent
Separate
of creation itself.
Yes. We are with you 100% on this issue. Next item I have here is, that we can probably chat a few minutes, is on the question of how to read the scripture itself. Whether it is the Old Testament, the New Testament, Baha'u'llah's writings, Quran, whatever. From the Baha'i perspective, and many open-minded Christians and Muslims agree with us, is that there are many stories and parables in the scriptures, in all the scriptures. That's part of it. The other thing is that the old scriptures were not written by one person, Moses or Jesus. Old Testament was written in the course of 1,400 years by hundreds of individuals, and none of them were really original. I mean, a lot of them copied and hearsay, and
Well, a lot of it came from oral tradition.
Oral tradition.
I'm passing the story, and it
Yes.
hasn't even been recorded
Yes.
in written form for hundreds of years.
hundreds of years. Yes. And of course, the New Testament, a much shorter period of time, 50, 70 years, and Islam, but Quran, still a shorter period of time, 10 to 30 years. So the point is that not all of these were composed by those prophets. The essence of what we see in scriptures is the truth, the essence of morality and compassion, all that. But then if we take these things one by one, item too far, then it causes problem. Then we have what we call, those become fundamentalists, in the sense of believing that the world was really created in 6 days. And the seventh day God rested. And then man was created, or woman was created from the, what is it?
The rib.
The rib of man. And so on and so forth, page after page. And that causes problems. So I'm sure that your thought pattern is in line with this. So Baha'i faith very much emphasizes the fact that the spirit of these scriptures are true. We should not take it literally. We should use our mind and our thoughts in explaining what the real truth is in those scriptures.
Unity talks a lot about this because the Bible is central to us, but we do find truth in all the world's scriptures. But the minute we call it and localize God and say it is the inerrant Word of God, We have taken the infinite and we have brought it down to a very small place. All Holy Scriptures, from the unity standpoint, including our own, and we believe that there are newer testaments being written today,
Yes.
that are the understanding of God is forever expanding, and it didn't stop when one particular writing happened, or one particular gospel, or one prophecy was written, or revelation happened. It's happening today. The minute we localize it and say God is contained within a very narrow field,
And that's the end of it.
that's the end of it. We've put God in a box.
Yes, yes,
We've put
exactly.
the infinite in a box and stopped growing, stopped learning. Unity's perspective of the Bible, as one of our major textbooks, it is nothing more than the history of the evolution of human consciousness. And what we would say, starting in the beginning, you mentioned Adam and Eve. Adam consciousness is a state of being a victim of our surroundings. Adam and Eve were all about blaming the other for their ills, for the fall from grace. Eve blamed the devil.
Right.
Moses, there was an elevation in consciousness that happened with Moses when Moses began, and in Adam and Eve, it's life happens to me. I have no control. It's a God of punishment that's just dictating moving chess pieces on a board. Moses says life happens by me. So we begin to have a sense of empowerment as a human being. I'm going to make things happen. Now, Moses, on his own power, obviously was unable to achieve his goals. I want to fast forward for the point. John the Baptist, a sense of co-creation begins to happen. A sense of partnership where he knows that there is a greater good and he is in relationship with it. But there's still a sense of duality. And then the Christ consciousness. Jesus comes on. So we have Adam, life happens to me. Moses, life happens by me. John the Baptist, life happens through me. And the Christ, which is where the ultimate goal is for the unity people, his life is happening at the point of me. It is verity conscious, moving from victim consciousness to I am the veritable vibrating center at which God is existing. Jesus said the Father and I are one. Our job is to follow that example. Now, that's a wonderful history and story. When we say it is the inerrant Word of God, we get into trouble because the Scriptures contain things that I believe create duality, that create pain and suffering, such as being able to sell your wife, or to kill your wife, or to beat your children. You know,
Yes.
It's man trying to understand, and I believe that today, if we stay just in the New Testament
Right.
and Jesus' teachings, we are missing the evolving process of humanity returning home to a higher consciousness. So I
Yes.
believe that all the prophets,
Yes.
including Baha'u'llah, have brought New Testaments.
Right.
And to not look at them
Right.
because they are newer
Yeah.
than our Bible is really limiting.
We are limiting
growth.
ourselves. Well, this is interesting, Richard, because I thought this is the Baha'i thought, but you're saying that this is unity thought.
We're
Which is
one.
One and the same, we're one. Exactly. This is what Baha'u'llah calls progressive revelations.
Yes.
Which means that, what you're saying, is that if we stop at the point of Jesus, or the Old Testament, or New Testament, or Quran, we are limiting God.
Yes.
And we can't do that because our mind is expanding, and God, or this expansion of mind, gives us newer truths, or new revelations in effect. And if we limit ourselves, we are depriving ourselves of progress.
Yes, unity is a fairly new movement.
Yeah.
But our founders, the Fillmores, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, Charles said, before it even became an organized religion, and there were those that would argue that it's not organized yet, said, I reserve the right to change my mind at any moment because my understanding of the infinite is forever expanding. Which is, it sounds very much like progressive revelation to me.
Yes, yes, exactly. Well, this is probably a good point to have a break, and then we'll come back.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
There is no you, there is no me, there's only God that I can see. There is no you, there is no me, there's only God that I can see. There is no I, is no them, there's only God, amen. There is no us, there is no them, there's only God.